and then close it back up, right?
Crack it, smell it,
Crack it,
close it back up.
Whoa! Holy crap!
Yeah, it's the bag too, right?
Whoa! I don't even know my name. Whoa! Woo!
Everybody, Kingdom Mindset 3 coming at you right now.
Let's do it.
Live in the mix.
So we got the troops with us. Josiah, would you hit us with that roll call?
Right on. We got the Rios boys.
You know it.
Michael
You know
Rios.
it. We're back,
Edgar
baby.
Rios. We got Josh Lopez.
Hey.
And we also have Tony, who is typically behind the camera. Tony will be joining us on a regular cruise now.
Let's go.
And it is a pleasure to have Tony with us. Tony is a part of Why Not Films. Tony also just released a short film that did fairly well, and a lot of people loved it, called Loop. Also, Rios Boys, part of Finnish Studios.
You know it.
And we are working with really, really good crew here. Blessed to have everyone involved here, guys. Blessed to be here. Mike's recovering from a recent incident with smelling salts. And still getting over, but we are ready to dive in here.
That's so funny.
Coming back to earth.
So, guys, we are touching base where we left it off on mission. And to me, mission basically talks to me as having purpose. For me personally, that's what I took a mission of. I think there's a lot of people out there that have identity issues, and they don't really know why they exist. Why am I here? You know, I think all of us have had that at some point where you're just so lucid, and even as a teenager or your early 20s, and you start coming to a point where you're like, wait, why do I exist? You know? You know, God, I believe, gives us purpose. And sometimes it takes a while to unfold. But one of the things that I've seen is he designates a mission for us, and he gives us purpose and gives us an identity. And it's really, it's up to us to find that with him. I know for me, you know, I deal within, I guess you can call it the recovery community. And I know I had been sent on my own journey, down my own road, dealing with drugs and alcohol and addiction. And God clearly used that and told me later on, much later on, even after I was doing a lot better than I was, that, hey, we're going to use this. You know, hey, this is your purpose in life. This is your mission. And it is to counsel, teach, support, and motivate people with life-controlling issues. I've recognized that as my mission. You know, and it's something that I am direct for. I beeline it for every time. You know, there's a handful of guys that I do sit down with that are struggling with something in life. And it doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. You know, it can be several different things, gambling, whatever. And it's just something that I feel like the Lord has his hand in, but really guiding me. That, and then fitness. The fitness industry has really been something that I found a direct correlation between mental health and physical fitness is huge. And that's something that I found pivotal in my life, and that is also something which had led this podcast. When Mike and I were discussing the podcast, like we talked about before in episode 1 and 2, just what Kingdom Mindset is, and it's a huge part of that. I know we've recently been talking with Tony over here, and Tony's been meant to pull in our podcast for you know, the last couple episodes. He's been diligently working behind the scenes, but Tony has a lot to say on mission and had some really good points that we were talking about. You know, and man, Tony, tell us what you're discussing as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, for sure. Mission is it's crucial. And honestly, a part of my testimony is very much what you were just saying in the beginning, where I would go through life not knowing what is going on, like not knowing what the purpose is. And, you know, when you're going through that, it's hard to live life, because if you don't have a purpose, if you don't like even have a plan, then like what are you doing? What is the purpose if there's no purpose, you know? And the beautiful thing about mission is it does provide a purpose. And I see mission in kind of like two different ways. Number one, as Christians, there's a mission for the church corporately. But then number two, there is a mission that God gives you for yourself personally. So corporately, actually where I get that is from scripture. In John 17:3, it's Jesus speaking. It's the night before he's crucified. He's praying to God. And he's
really nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he says in it, this is eternal life, that they may know you, the Father, and the Son in whom you've sent. So what does that really mean? When he says eternal life, in other words, that's really Jesus saying, this is the purpose of life, that they may know who God is and Jesus who he has been sent. So what does that mean? That means that we need to know who Jesus is. We need to know who God is, the character of God. So that's like one of the first things of the mission of the corporate church is to know who God is. And then secondly is actually from Matthew, I believe 28, where it's his final words after after his resurrection, where he says, all authority on earth and in heaven has been given to me, therefore go. So again, this is like the final words on both instances. And, when someone's on their deathbed or when someone is like, hey, final words, I'm not going to see you ever again, or, for a little bit, Jesus is coming back. They're pretty important words, So again, to know who God is, and then secondly, to let God be known. He says, therefore go and make disciples. So that's really the mission of the church. And then finally, the last thing is to encourage and love one another, which is taken from 1 Thessalonians 5:11. So those are the main things of the mission. And it's really cool because even if you don't know what your personal mission is, like let's say you're struggling with that, there is still the corporate mission of the church that you can still deposit things into.
Yeah.
Wow.
That
That's
is really good.
I
Yeah.
like that. One thing that you brought up is very like faith-based, the faith-based perspective on mission and the faith-based perspective on behind a corporate mission and individual mission. And I understand that there may be viewers who are not people of the faith as well, and I think that this is an interesting topic if you find yourself in that category. Perhaps a lot of your feelings may be similar to what Josiah was mentioning about identity. And I think that is a core element. There's a restlessness that I also felt in my life that didn't really get satisfied until I joined the faith, until I started to walk with God myself. And so there's a clear path and a clear road when you're talking about things through that spiritual lens.
Yeah, I want to say too is like, if you look at the corporate world, every corporation, major corporation has a mission statement.
Yes.
So then like, if you think about that, how much more should we be treating our lives as something to be on mission for,
Very interesting, this idea of, corporate mission and everything having a mission. I think with mission, you find your purpose. It's kind of hard to find your purpose without finding your mission. So in my everyday job, I lead a group of guys. So it varies from like 1 to 4 different guys, even up to crews as large as 10 different guys. And something that I tell them is like, okay, the place where we're working always changes, but remembering the mission and the goal never does. We kind of do the same thing, just different places. So if you're ever lost and confused, like, what do I do in the moment? Well, think about what the mission is. What is the ultimate goal? And then you find your purpose on that spot. So
yeah, you always have to have something to fall back on, because if you're just going through your life without an understanding of even like a simple plan for the day, like you're in certain ways, like you're not living life to the fullest, not to get all like cheesy, but it's important to know. And then again, like I feel like a mission isn't always going to be the exact same and for every season, but there's things that are put in your life, like for instance, certain giftings that you have. You're really good with audio stuff, Mike, but not everyone's good with that. and other people might be really good with X, Y, and Z, and you kind of figure out what your personal mission statement is, like, and what your, in turn, your purpose is,
right,
from the giftings that have been given to you.
Yeah, that
you
you've been blessed with. Yeah.
Right.
No, very interesting. So something kind of happened, not directly with me, but around me at my job. So I saw this, and it's actually pretty scary. And I'm just going to allude to just this story, and it's about the absence of mission. And this revelation came to me not too long ago. So I have this friend. I won't say his name. He's an older cat. In his 70s. He could be like, even like my dad's dad type stuff. But he worked with me. He's actually the oldest guy that worked with me. Most of the people that do work with me are similar to my age. And, I talk with this guy. He's a very cool dude. Life of the party. Pretty funny because the oldest guy ends up being, the life of the party at my job. But anyways, he said this one time. He's like, man, if the job were to fire me, I don't know what I would do. And I looked at him like, what do you mean you don't know what to do? Well, he meant I don't know what to do with my life. Like, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
And, in the moment, it didn't dawn on me until after like dwelling on it and just whatnot. In the moment, I just encouraged him like, nah, man, the job needs you. You're the necessary evil here.
Sure.
Like, you're good at what you do. You know so much. You got years of experience. And, a couple weeks later, the job did fire him.
Wow.
And this was not too long ago.
Sheesh.
And then that memory of the moment of me talking with him came back to mind. And it's pretty interesting to see how, when you don't have a mission, you don't know your purpose. In his case, he thought his purpose was, the job. Like, without the job, I don't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's pretty scary to think like how something of this world that can come and go like that, that became his, he found this purpose through that. Pretty scary. Anyways, yeah.
That's something that, I found interesting too, because even as a chef, right? Chef for, 16, years, a little longer than that before God kind of pulled me out of that, in a manner of speaking. You find these guys are like, I'm a chef. Like, no, you're you, like you're not, that's your occupation and you're using it as your identity. And especially, you see men fall in that road, and really everyone, but you see men fall in that road where it's like, no, I'm an engineer. It's like, okay, but who are you, Chris? You know what I'm saying? Who are you, Mike? Like, what gives you value outside of your occupation? You know, and you don't see a ton of that in the very, very young generation right now, because I think they're all lost and looking for themselves right now as well. But it's so easy to gravitate to that because you go to school for it, or a lot of people go to school for it, or if you're blue collar, then you've done enough of it where I'm like, no, I'm trained. I'm HVAC. I'm an HVAC. I'm an HVAC guy. That's who I am. It's like, okay, but that's not all you have to talk about, right? And if it is, all right, then you need to widen your horizon and get out there, And I think a lot of that comes down to serving, right? A lot of guys that I serve, the church with, or serve in ministry with, you start finding more and more about these guys. And I've actually found probably more intellectual conversations amongst the people that I'm serving with, and deep conversations, because then they really start talking about who they are. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is my occupation. I clean a building for a living, or, I'm actually engineer on a train. You have all these guys. Well, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But then it's like, okay, but you're married, right? Like, you got kids, it's like, okay, that's who I'm looking for. You know what I'm saying? That's the guy that I'm looking for. And when you find that, and God actually gives you that, it's like, no, I'm a family man. I'm not just a chef. I'm not just an engineer. I'm not just an HVAC guy. I'm not just, a photographer, so when you start finding those things out and you really establish that, that's why it's so important for us to find our mission from God, and that really, because it leads to purpose. And sometimes there is that middle ground, but.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I think is very, very crucial, and it's that idea of identity. Because if you don't have your mission, or at least if you're not even on track for your mission, then you start putting your identity in occupations and temporary things. And just like, the person you worked with, that can come and go. Right. The Bible is very clear in saying, like, there's a season for everything. That's in Ecclesiastes, but then also Colossians talks about that things are temporary, right? And it's not always going to be long lasting. So the things that we should be investing in is the eternal things, which is what comes into the idea of mission. Because again, if you don't have a mission, then you're investing your identity into what your identity into occupations, for example, and then your purpose becomes your occupation. Mm-hmm. But your occupation can fail you. You can get fired. Something can happen, you know? Yeah. And even like what you said, you mentioned me as a photographer, you know, God forbid I could lose my hands on some freak accident or something, and then I can't take pictures anymore. Right. So if I'm putting my identity in my purpose of taking photos, well, then I'm wiring and I'm thinking about the wrong way of thinking. Like that's not what my identity is, you know?
Mm-hmm. You know, at the long run, bro, I believe that someone's purpose and mission should always be just pursuing the Lord 100%. Yeah. Like that's really the core of it. Because once you're ready in pursuit of that, God is going to reveal to you your mission, your purpose, when you just dedicate your life to God wholeheartedly, in full surrender, in submission, whatever you want to call it. And that's everyone's pursuit. That's everyone's purpose, and that's everyone's mission. Yeah. And then everyone has different gifts. Everyone has different callings. Everyone has different missions. You know, we're all different parts of the body. But I believe that when we align ourselves biblically and just have, obviously not perfect, we're all imperfect people, but when we just continue to be intentional about praying, fasting, reading the word, being disciplined in certain things that we do, God is just going to be unfolding things before us. It's just like how it says that, you know, we make our plans, but God establishes our steps.
I like that, what you said. You know, it's like when you're pursuing the Lord, it's you're almost like wanting all of your decisions and actions are shaped around obedience to what God wants. It's like, God, what's the assignment now? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And 100%. That can actually, it could keep you grounded when things change, but that can also evolve as well. I think about it for my life, and growing up, I felt my first mission that I had really discovered was worshiping the Lord through my creative skill set in art and design and music. And after a few years of equipping and preparing me, the Lord had actually rocked my world in 2021 and changed that mission. Yeah. And my assignment is now in feeding the word of God to people. And that has helped me learn what to say yes and what to say no to. But I love what you said, bro. It's really all stems, or the motivation behind it was pursuing the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you brought up this idea of asking God, what is my mission? Because let's be honest, there is always a little bit of a gray period where sometimes you don't find your mission out right away. Yeah. But seeking it and pursuing it and asking the Lord, you know, you said everybody should, you know, pursue Christ. And that made me think of, you know, there should be a reference level. Like there should always be a baseline. Okay, when you don't know what to do, seek Christ. And then ask him, what is your next mission? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I was going to say too is like, you know, in all transparency, I have a mission, but it's not something that I am completely satisfied with. And I like how we're talking about this, because your personal mission can change based off of the season that you're in. Right. For instance, Edgar, what you said, you know, you were pretty set with like, okay, my mission is to work on my creative, use it through the creative arts. But then now it's like, oh snap, that got shifted. So now I'm feeding the word of God to people. Yep. But again, as you said, Mike, it's very important that we have a base. And really, going back to what I said in the beginning, you know, what I really feel like is it starts with the base of what the mission of the church itself is. But then even outside of that is like going to the identity piece, what your identity is rooted in first. Then you can figure out like, okay, now that I'm okay with myself, I'm not like worried of like, you know, what's going on. I can actually go into the next thing, which would be your personal mission, and figure out, as Josh, as you said, what are some giftings I have, or what do I lean to, and figure out it going that route.
Well, I think it goes back to also, we're mentioning seasonal and how these things evolve too. And where I'm talking to a bunch of guys, and all of them have kind of come to this point where they're unsure why they're here, and they're getting down and depressed because it's like, I don't even know, what I'm supposed to do, and whether it's, occupational, whether it's, down to actual purpose, if you don't know, figure it out. Okay. And it really comes down to trying everything, and you're trying different things until something sticks, and you're absolutely rooted in prayer, like Josh was talking about too. That is the start of it. But don't just sit there and do nothing and then wallow in why am I here?
Yeah.
Well, no wonder you're thinking that way. You're not doing anything, you need to start moving around and actually do something with your life. And it doesn't mean, well, I'm sitting here, I'm existing. Okay, you exist for a reason, so find that out, dig in, and then go after that with everything that you have that's in you. And once you start doing that, you'll already start feeling better about your existence here on Earth,
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it truly is a fight and something that you have to push for. Like, you have to be consistent with seeking out the mission. Just like working out in the gym, things don't happen overnight. You have to continuously show up.
Right.
So you have to continuously seek this out, continuously praying for this stuff.
Get up and go after something.
Yeah, you have to do something. Yeah,
It's
That's a
interesting.
good thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, I guess wanted to ask the question to us, but like, I love the go after it. And you're talking about praying through it. That's one way to go after it. But if a person doesn't have that mission, I guess, how can they go after it?
Right.
So, this is that gray period that I was referring to. There is going to be seasons where you don't exactly know what to go after, but you have to have that reference level and you have to have that baseline. So when you're lost in the midst of everything, similar to what I was saying, like the way I talk to my crew, when you don't know what you're doing, think about what your job is. What is the mission? The only thing that changes here is the setting and the site. Otherwise, there is a baseline and there is a reference point. So let's go back there, and that'll tell you your purpose, Yeah,
so, going off of going off of what you were talking about, with a ton of guys they just kind of think that if they mosey on through life, that something will just plop in front of them and they're like, oh, here we
fall
go.
out of the sky.
Yeah, like that kind of mentality. And that's a really dangerous mentality, because you're putting yourself in a position of vulnerability where you're stuck. Like, you're going to be stuck.
Right.
The Bible's pretty clear. It says in Ephesians 4 to walk in a manner worthy of the calling on your life.
Right.
I fully believe that each of us, everyone has a calling. It's just a matter of if you're going to step into it. And again, going off of a church setting, I'll be referencing that a lot, is a lot of people aren't serving. Like, they're simply just not serving. There's a statistic about it. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's a crazy amount of people that are not actually serving. And you figure out yourself in doing that. And it goes back to the other things that I talked about too with the mission of the church, is like, how are we going to push forward the gospel if people are not stepping up to do that?
Yeah.
It takes the whole body to do that. How are we going to push forward the mission? Not even like just letting God be known, but how are we going to encourage and love one another if we're not involved in these activities and we're not even around each other, So by doing that, I've seen this firsthand, and even personally speaking, getting involved with stuff of like, I've never been a physical artsy guy. Like, I'm not really good with drawing and stuff, but going to some of these workshops that they have, I realize like, oh snap, I'm meeting all these people, I'm connecting with them, I'm seeing their lives, they're introducing me to other things, and then that's where I start to find like, oh, this is where my mission is leading. And it starts from that. But if you're just staying at home, if you're just sitting there and you're not doing anything, then how do you expect to figure out what your mission is? It's not going to just fall from the sky, as you said.
No, that's funny. You kind of made me think of this. not being afraid to step out of what you're comfortable in, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
sometimes our weaknesses and insecurities can kind of dictate the way we perceive our mission, you know?
Right.
Sometimes the Lord will call you clean out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And you got to step up and you got to pick up your cross and do it,
You also have to do a lot of soul searching. Where does those insecurities come from?
Yeah.
Right.
Like that goes in tied to like, okay, what is my identity? Like you were just
going
talking
back to
about,
that.
Tony.
Yeah.
And and I believe that when you search, okay, like why am I angry? Like why am I so quick to get angry? Or why am I always complaining? Or what am I so insecure about? When we just really dig deep, because a lot of these things we just neglect, or we just oversee these things, or we don't pay attention to them, and we just go about life, and then all of a sudden it's like we're this individual that we shouldn't be this way, because it's like we're starting to communicate with individuals that in a non-healthy way.
Yeah.
Like in a way where it's like, for example, say you speak to me, Edgar, and then you're asking me simple questions, and then I just start getting super defensive, or like say, Mike, you're talking to me, and then I'm getting agitated, like I'm getting angry at you because you just asked me a simple question.
Yeah.
It's like, why am I getting angry like that, or why am I feeling defensive? Excuse me, like that.
Yeah.
And so
self-reflection's key there.
Super
Yeah.
key.
Really, like, honestly, that it's like, you actually go back to questioning yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you stop concentrating on those around you that we talked about last episode, right? And I'm concentrating on me, then the quicker I find out what is wrong with me, and I get to the basis of these things. So if I'm like, Josiah, why are you acting like this? And the sooner you can recognize, like, what's wrong with me, the sooner I can say, and I catch that, I guess, battle that comes to my lap.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, why are you doing this? You know what I'm saying? If I'm acting that way towards someone, it's like, no, what's your problem? And how do I get to the basis of this? So there's definitely root causes of stuff that you got to get to.
Yeah.
So
to be
maybe,
better, 100%.
right. And
there's always root causes, because a lot of us have gone through trauma, or like bad experiences in life,
right.
And then we hold on to that. We don't forgive. We don't let it go, and that affects our mission. That affects our purpose, because then we're just hindering our walk with God.
Right. That goes back to victim mentality, what we talked about last episode too.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, now you're immovable.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to do anything then? Well, dude, figure your life out. You know what I'm saying? Like, instead of just sitting something and wallowing in that.
Some people don't want to figure it out. Some people just want
some
things
people
the
like
easy
the
way.
dark. Yeah, it's the comfort of the dark place.
Figure your life out. Merch coming soon.
Down, man. Even Gunther says it too, bro.
Yeah. Well, that's actually what I was gonna say. Is like, it takes a level of maturity to actually look at yourself and break down, okay, what are my faults?
Right.
Like, a lot of people, they don't want to look at their faults. It's comfortable to just kind of live in their life how they are.
Right.
But if you're honest enough about your life and you're looking at your faults and you're saying, okay, where does this actually stem from?
Right.
And you actually alluded to it, but sometimes that's some pretty deep stuff. Like, maybe you didn't get love from your dad when you were a kid.
100%,
Maybe, you got bullied or whatever in school, and like, that goes into your future self. And then
your identity, to go back to your identity.
It goes into your identity.
Right.
You're like, oh, well, no, this is just who I am.
Yeah.
Like, like,
I got abused when I was younger, and now this is part of who I am. It's like, it doesn't have to be, though.
Look, I just get agitated because of X, Y, and Z. It's like, no. Yeah, exactly. It does not have to be.
Right.
But are you willing to be mature enough to actually do the work and figure out where does that come from, and then break agreement with that lie?
Yeah.
Now it's laziness. A lot of people are lazy. Don't even
Oh,
want to put in
dude, you
the
know
work.
what's also really big is people like to say, "Nah, I'm just that way. That's just how I am."
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly what it made me believe.
Right.
I think you have to push yourself to change and to grow, to be better. the same way, and another gym reference, but the same way you can go to the gym every day, you do the same routine, you go into what is called a plateau.
Yep.
And in
Yeah.
your life, you can, because of everything, you claim to be this way all the time. And you're at this steady coast of plateau in your life
Yeah,
where
that's
you're
good.
not changed and there's nothing good happening and coming about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. I think also when you are talking with somebody and they do want to identify as something that with the trauma that they had when they were younger, it's not saying that you didn't go through trauma, and that's not, we're not going to validate that.
For
or
sure.
No one's going to validate that.
It's totally valid.
It's when you're hanging
Yeah.
on to only that and you're saying, well, this happened to me when I was a kid. It's like, okay, so either you're going to use that as an identity in the negative way, where either woe is me or this is who I am because of this, or on the positive note, it's like, no, this is who I am. This is what happened to me. It's not my fault, but I'm actually going to use it in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if I went
Exactly.
through, my story is a little bit different because I was just a jerk. I just kept on, using drugs and drinking, right? Like there was no underlying abuse there or anything that happened to me.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could try to dig something up that's deep in there that doesn't need to be unpacked,
Yeah, then you'd be a victim mentality.
Right, exactly. And I don't even want that. So I'm like,
Yeah.
so there's nothing there that was significant enough for me to say, okay, woe is me. I created my own environment, my own destruction, right? But I can still use my bad choices and everything that I went through and use it for the best that I could. If someone was abused when they were younger, okay, if it was physical, mental abuse, verbal abuse, they can actually use that as that's what a testimony is, as their testimony, and say, yeah, this is part of my identity, but I'm going to use it to help other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to say, oh, well, this is my
Exactly.
identity, woe is me, and then sit in the dark and be like, this is comfortable in the dark. I like the darkness.
Right.
I don't want to move. I don't want to do anything. I'm okay with coasting through life. That is no way to live. And you were created for a purpose.
Yeah.
And you have a purpose. Get out there and find out what it is. Otherwise, you're just wasting what God had
Yeah.
hand given you.
You know what's insane about that? I'm sorry, Edgar, to cut you off, but that even reminds me too of like, you think about the people who, let's say their dad was an alcoholic, that son or daughter could either be one of two things. They can either be an alcoholic themselves
Right.
because they just followed what their dad did,
Right.
or they can choose not to be because they see the effects. Like you
Exactly.
see that all the time of like,
Yeah.
drug addict parents, like most likely their kid will be a drug addict because
Right.
they'll fall, but they have the choice not to be.
Right.
You know? And what's insane about that too is like if you are actively looking and being honest with yourself and being mature and you're seeing all these things, you have the choice to pass that on to your kid or to keep it for yourself and leave it in the past.
Oh,
Yeah.
So it's like a generational thing that you can actually like prevent your future kids or generations or even people around you that you have
Yeah.
influence on.
You do have a
from going
choice.
into it. You have a
Everything
choice.
is a choice. And there's going to be people that might watch this and say, no, I didn't have a choice. This happened to me. And they're going to go right back to that and be like, I don't think you understand.
Yeah.
It's like, we might understand more than you realize. And you don't know that, but you're going to go right to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
You
you just
do
gotta
have a
be
choice I have a choice whether I want to be angry the whole entire day. Okay. Or if my dad was to beat me, I have a choice to beat my kid, or I have a choice to talk to her, look at her in the face, and discuss the issues that are
Yeah.
at hand.
Yeah.
I actually have a thought I want to piggyback, but you guys are talking about how looking at some of the painful parts of your past, you have a decision to make, let that rule over you, or you can you can have triumphal,
Yeah.
you can have victory over it. I think another thing is there's a special opportunity to rewrite those painful parts of your past.
Yeah.
In spiritually speaking, in the faith, one of the huge elements of Christianity is discipleship. And these parts of your life, while it's valid to feel the pain. It's valid to feel that grief and sadness and even be upset at some of those low points in your life. But all of those moments make you uniquely qualified to help lift someone else up. When you look at your testimony, that can also build up your mission in saying, how can I help someone out through this? Perhaps you can find yourself being the only one like who has gone through something that this other person is going through, you know?
Yeah.
You'll know exactly every thought, every challenge, every temptation that was faced in that moment, and you can be a light to someone else.
Yeah,
Right.
it's almost this idea of let my experience be your shortcut. You know, like, look, I already went through this, and this is on the latter half of it, but I chose not to go through that. I recognize someone else in my life that's going through that, and now I can pour into them and say, look, here's everything you need to not do, and here's everything that you need to do based off of my experience. Let me help you.
And there's a lot of purpose in that.
Oh, yeah, yes.
When you can
You're
really
changing someone else's life.
Yeah.
You know, it's
tell
like,
me you won't feel good after doing something like that. You know,
It's
that
fulfilling.
you know, the Bible actually says it's better to serve than to be served. And that's why Jesus came. You know, he said he came to be a servant, you know, and the greatest among you is the servant, you know? So if you're serving other people, it's not even like, even take the mission out of it, it feels good to serve someone else. Like to know, look, I was the reason why that guy didn't go down a bad path because I gave him advice and he took it, you know? So I don't know.
So there's one thing that I know, even in, you know, you can call it again, the recovery community, you know, AA and NA, they cling on to these, you know, these steps. They call it the 12 steps. You know, I look at it as a little bit different. You know, I'm not, how do I put this without offending? You have, you know, in the kingdom, you have what I like to call one step, and it's out of the darkness into the light. We have 12 steps that actually use as more a guide to pull people out of their addiction. You know, and I've seen it work in people. But one of the last steps is to sponsor somebody, you know, and I don't know the exact phrasing that they use, but the point of a sponsor is someone who's been down that road, you know, and letting their experiences be your shortcuts, you know, and it's like passing this on and saying, no, this is what to do and what not to do. You know, and, you know, sometimes those people fall, sometimes, you know, they don't, sometimes people stick with it for years. The reason why that is probably the last step is because you've gone through it already. You know what I'm saying? You've gone through that road already. So now I'm here to pull somebody else up, you know, or to help that person get pulled up through my experiences. There's a book, man, and I forget the author. We'll have to look it up. You know, maybe Tony, you could pull it up.
Sure.
But it's called The Master Plan of Discipleship.
Okay.
And the book basically talks about how Jesus had a master plan from the beginning, you know, and you look at, you start with Jesus, and then you start with a few disciples, and then you end up with the 12 disciples. And then 11, and then you see, then the Bible starts talking about the upper room, right? And what does it talk about? There's over 100 people up there, you know, and I, you know, I got to look back at the exact reference, but then it goes on from there, you know, like more people are spreading that into thousands and thousands. So you look at Christianity today, and some of it, Christianity has been twisted so much over the years that even where I rest right now, that are like, no, I don't always like calling myself a Christian, but I do love saying that I have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
You know, it's because religion has been twisted so much into that.
Yeah.
You know,
Unfortunately.
But I guess to go back to you spreading what Jesus' his thought process was on this was like, no, this is how the master plan of discipleship is going to take.
Right.
You know, and it's spreading that and being like, listen, I went through this. You don't have to live in darkness.
Yeah.
You do have a purpose. You do have an identity, and your identity is in Christ.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole mission comes back from. If you have a mission, that shows you what your purpose is. And be like, oh my gosh, like my purpose is actually to help other people out, you know?
Yeah.
And it could be more. That could be one of the things that gives you purpose. Father, husband, leader. You know, these things are actually all part of you, not just you're a chef.
Exactly.
Like, dude, that's all you say is you're a chef. It doesn't stop there. You don't say I'm a father, but it makes up who you are. And, you know, the world wants to call us by our sin a lot, you know, Like, you're an alcoholic, you're an addict, you're a moron, whatever it is, they want to call you a name, but Christ is like, no, I'm going to call you Tony. I'm going to call you Mike. I'm going to call you Edgar. I'm going to call you Josh. He wants to call us by name, right? And that's the difference that we see in between those two roles. That is my identity, is that it is in Christ.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, the Bible says we are children of God. But I wanted to actually go on what you said at the end there, because it really, towards the middle there, it really reminded me of what I said in the beginning of 1 Thessalonians 5:11, which says to encourage and love one another.
Right.
Like, so what does that practically look like? And I feel like we've been touching on that pretty heavily. To encourage and love one another is everyone in here knows a guy or girl who is struggling with something. And we have all been through something and like ourselves. So how are we being intentional with those people? And going back to the serving concept, if you start to serve them and really think about like, okay, what are you going through in your life? How can I help you? What are my experiences that I've had? How can they benefit you to become your shortcut? Then you start to really see, wow, I got a passion for this. Like, I'm actually really good at this. Like, this is a gifting that I have.
Right. And
And then that's when the mission starts to kick in of like, okay, God, is this what the mission is for my life? Am I supposed to be a servant in this way? Am I supposed to do this? X, Y, and Z, But again, going back to this, everyone knows someone in their life that they can pour into, even if you don't realize it. Like, if you take a couple minutes and think about, okay, who's in my life? What have they experienced? What have I experienced? How can I pour into that? Then you can really start to see, wow, I can actually invest in this person right now,
On the other side of that same coin, you could be asking questions from the older generations too.
Right.
Okay. The older that I get, the more I want to pour into younger generations. And it's something that I think is something you're born with almost, it's like there's a part of you should be learning. Now I'm still grabbing from people that are older than me and being like, wait. And the older that I get, the more I want to learn, the more I become this sponge. Like, dude, tell me whatever. I will find all humility I can, and I know nothing. I will walk into that place and be like, no, I don't know anything. Even if I do know something.
Have humility, though. You have to be teachable.
Well, right, and it obviously starts there, but and that's where you figure your life out. Dude, like, start reaching out, and then you start realizing how much.
And how do you reach
need,
out though? For people that doesn't know how to reach out, how you supposed to reach out? Like,
pick up the phone. Find someone. Find someone that is, in your life. Okay, and they're older. Find out what they're digging in. If you say everyone knows someone that's wiser than. Right. And I start going asking questions.
If you don't, then you're in the wrong room.
Well, you're right. I mean, and if it's not an arm's length, then you're not out there enough.
Yeah.
It means you haven't left your room. Okay.
Yeah, there's that saying like, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you where you're at in 5 years.
Right.
Like, that's on the other side of it too. You got to make sure, number one, you're in a position where there's people that are pouring into you.
Sure.
So like, to answer your question, Josh, and not to take over Josiah, but if you don't have, like, number one, if you don't have people around that are like that, you got to start looking for those people and really praying about it as well. At least personally, there was a time period where I really felt like I didn't have those people around. It was just myself and, maybe a couple other outliers. But you gotta really pray and then even put yourself in positions. And that's, again, serving. If you start serving, you're going to meet more people. You're going to see, oh, you do this X, Y, and Z. You're this kind of guy. And you got to see, like, okay, once you start figuring out what your mission is, you'll find out what your purpose is. And then that'll get you in places where you're around guys that are in line with your mission, in line with your purpose, and that'll be above you that can pour into you. It's like a whole cycle, just compound. You just keep going and going.
Well, creating your community or culture, you're actually
is key.
You should be having your own an ecosystem, right? Like, this is I'm going to pour out, and you should get poured into, and if you don't, then keep on trying elsewhere. Well, I reached out to this guy, and a lot of people stop, right? Like, I reached out to this guy and he didn't want to have anything to do with me. All right, well, clearly you asked the wrong dude, okay? Because there are people out there, and I know, dude, there's 50 guys right now that I could rattle off that just in my church alone that would easily pour out, and I've reached out to them, So now I'm down a journey where I'm trying to self-teach myself business, right? So there's some of that, but what am I going to do? I'm not just going to go to Google University for everything, right? Because it's going to stop there. I want guys that are actually going to take the time and be like, listen, don't do that. Don't step there. Don't put your money there.
Right.
And they're going to start teaching me things that I wouldn't know because they've been through it and they made the wrong decisions already. I want to know what you've done wrong. Like, let me know what I can do right so I'm not stepping down there. And there's a chance I'm still going to be stupid and make that decision anyway. Yeah. But at least I'll remember, okay, I won't make it twice now. Yeah. Because I remember this guy saying this, and I should have remembered when I made the bad decision in the first place. Right? Like, even going through my journey with drugs and alcohol, they said, listen, if you do this, this is going to happen. Okay? If you take painkillers, you're eventually going to probably start doing heroin. Don't do painkillers. Okay, like
a route.
It's a progression. You know what I'm saying? And it's a jump. But
whoa there, pal.
So regardless, but there's a testimony.
Hold your horses.
So now I have guys that come to me and they're like, man, I'm addicted. I can't stop eating. Right? I'm addicted to food. I can't stay away from it. Okay, let's walk down that road. Okay, because I dealt with these severe things in my life. There's actually an options that you can take going this route. Right. There are people that are all over the place that want to pour into you. They love hearing it. And the first thing most people, they want to hear you ask and be interested. Okay. They want to pour into you.
No, that's super good. It's also important. I know we read this in the Bible, but slow to speak, but quick to listen. I think there is a true art to being able to receive. You also have you kind of have to self-diagnose yourself. There's a lot of self-reflection here. Leave the pride at the door. Not everybody that is speaking into your life is trying to, speak poison into your life. You have to be able to receive. I think that's a big part.
Well, and recognizing when something negative is coming
you
too.
can. Yeah, so
you get poured into and it's all negative.
No, well, yeah.
It's the idea of chew the meat, spit out the bones.
Right.
You gotta take that.
You also have
or
to
fish scales.
That too.
Says the guy allergic to fish.
Shellfish, right.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. I like that. You guys are talking about good stuff because it's like when you're trying to discover that mission, I think it comes down to self-diagnosing, right? Seeing what you're passionate about, and then finding someone who may be older or more experienced than you with that passion to talk through it. You could also look through your past and how you can repurpose your testimony for the good and helping someone else out. Those are all real practical ways of like helping to discover your mission. On top of praying and seeking the Lord out, It wasn't until I really started getting into the church environment though that I really heard about mission and that kind of put it in focus. Same for you guys.
It's kind of Christianese, certain things that you talk about, and it's kind of Christianese, and you even have that, like, depending on the church that you're going to, where there's certain phrases that you say, and it's something you're just like, well, this is said a lot around, my community, so, you end up repeating it, but then you don't realize people have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, it's crazy.
Obviously, there's a hope in this. That we're
it's crazy because I remember when I was going to church when I was a kid, and I don't even remember that type of language, like, what's your mission? What's your purpose?
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, I don't remember that at all.
You never used the word fellowship until you got saved.
Yeah, 100%. Not even community, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason why I went to church was to eat. That
was this guy.
I think you're going for the wrong reasons.
I definitely was.
It sounds about right though.
Well, yeah, it's pretty interesting though because we're saying like we didn't really hear any of this stuff until we got involved with church. But I would almost disagree in a way because going back to what I said earlier, the corporate world, right? They have their own mission statements.
Yeah.
So I would argue that like we would hear it just wouldn't be personalized for yourself.
Sure.
Yeah. But that's why it's important, and it's almost like mind blowing to some folks. Like, wait, you mean I can have a mission for yourself? It's not about Nike having their own mission,
right?
No,
that's true.
You can be purposeful with your life. You can be intentional with your life, and I think that's something that's like once you find your mission and once you figure out, again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but once you're on that path of figuring out what your mission is. You have to then be intentional with it and then create habits and investments in specific areas of your life that are going to push your mission even further or like push yourself to the goal of what your mission is. And that's kind of like what where you feel the fulfillment of your purpose is when you start to actually invest in your mission yourself. What are some ways that like you guys have invested in your own personal mission, like practically?
Good question.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I am big on teaching. Now, my current mission is revolving around teaching and speaking. And so I look and I make observations with different speakers and different teachers. I mean, that's a lot of the content I kind of consume, and taking notes on how to deliver a message, spending a lot of time, you know, specifically with creating the message. And I'm thankful that I have this background in graphic design, because that's what the goal was within design. It was about how you can articulate that. But that started to almost help filter out the content that I was looking or researching. You know, I guess in essence, it's a researching kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to research, you also have to like block out a time in your day to be able to do that. And like, in my opinion, that would be an investment, because if you are well, here's something I'll say is like, once you have your mission, I think you even said this a couple of times, but you are able to say yes to things and you know what to say no to.
Right.
So then you can block out your day in a certain way and be intentional about that. Like, you know, maybe a couple of friends are like, hey, let's go out to eat after whatever. But you're like, hey, you know what? I actually really want to be intentional about what I'm doing. Yeah. So I'm going to block out this hour that I could be hanging out and doing this, and be intentional and learning like some ways to teach or way to do the X, Y, and Z.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think it may even be fair to speak for us all, but I think this podcast is an extension of us living out the mission. Our mission, right? I mean, here we are talking about Christ, talking about fitness. I mean, we all care about people. We all care about health. We all care about the embetterment of people. So.
Right.
Well, that's recognizing it, you know, and I think once you obviously see it and you start getting a feel of your mission, you know, or your identity in the mission, which is, you know, it should go hand in hand. Right. Once I realized that, you know, one of my jobs was to teach and counsel, I got to beeline it for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, well then that's revolved around that. Okay. So what am I doing to enhance everything that I went through? Not just my experiences at this point. Okay. Now, dude, I got to do a little bit of schooling on this too. You know what I'm saying? So I got to take these classes, or I got to dig into psychology. I got to know how the mind's working. Right. If I wanted to dig into physical fitness, dude, I'm looking into the whole, you know, personal training thing then, you know, and I'm digging into health. I'm trying to teach myself new stuff all the time about health, and stuff is obviously coming out, and the information is out there, you know, so it's not that hard, especially these days, to actually do research into whatever it is you're realizing you are, you know? So, okay, if I'm a teacher and a counselor, I'm not going to sit there and be like, okay, well, let's let it happen. No, dude, then you go after it. Especially when you find out you have a purpose, dude, then throw steroids at it. You know, like do something where you're
smelling salts at it.
No doubt.
Not that close. Right, Mike? Like there's a
maybe not
cut
smelling
to Michael
salts.
taking smelling salts.
And don't take steroids necessarily. But you're basically trying to
don't
blow
take steroids.
this. You're trying to blow this. Teach their own. Okay, but you know,
don't do that.
But the point that you're trying to make is that you're trying to blow whatever is up, and once you find that out, dude, you got to go right after that and be like, okay, what is it in my life? And even occupational, you know, is a guy that I counsel that just realized that he might want to be a firefighter, right? So I'm like, dude, then volunteer at a firehouse.
Right.
Like, well, you know, I need to work. Sometimes you got to bite the bullet. And when you feel like this is definitely something that I got to do, then you run after it. Do whatever I can, take classes online, figure out whatever I can to be a firefighter. And then how can I use that to help other people as well? By the way, I learned this, you know, and digging into people, having conversations, whatever you can. I don't care if you're an introvert. You still got to get out there and figure it out by pouring into other people and getting poured into.
You know what? It's definitely a gift to be like a teachable person. Yeah. But I feel like it's a learned gift. Like I definitely feel you can definitely learn to 100%. Be teachable. For some people, like they can get it like that,
Right.
but other, and less to them. But then there's other people, like it takes a little bit of time, but the thing is that you gotta put in the time. Like no matter what, like if it's easier for you than it is for such and such person, like it doesn't matter. You still gotta put in the time, and just like the gym, you just gotta show up. Like that is the win. Showing up, like. Then okay, at least you came. You're in the top 1% now. Like at least you came. Some people aren't even showing up, So
well, that goes down to gym.
I was just
too.
about to say that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
You show up at the gym, and then, dude, you're going to be that much close to it. If you're not going to the gym, you're like, man, my squat sucks.
Yeah.
Or I don't know how to work out. Let's just start from the very bottom. I don't know how to work out. Well, go to the gym and start walking on a treadmill.
Yeah.
Now you know how to walk on a treadmill.
Just
you
look
know?
at
Like,
other
there's-
people and then copy them. If
No,
But
you
you'd
have
also
to
be
keep-
surprised how many people at the gym actually
care.
do want to share, whether it's their ego or not. Be like, oh, I know a lot, so of course I'll share with you guys.
Yeah,
for sure.
But whether it is their ego or not, most people do want to share at the gym, and some people don't even want to go into the gym because they're so insecure in themselves.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is that, dude, everybody at that gym has some sort of insecurity along the way. That's why they're at the gym.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
have-
Whether
showing
it's
up
your
is-
mind, you're
yeah,
overweight, or
100%.
you're underweight.
I actually
you know?
had that same story because like the reason I didn't start going to the gym was because I was insecure about it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
Like I would watch a YouTube video and I would still be like I'm totally a like hands-on learner. So if I'm not in the gym actually doing it, you can tell me it, you can show me it,
Right.
but if I'm not actually physically doing it, I'm not going to know what's happening. So I would show up and I would be like, or I would be thinking about going to the gym and it would be something I'd be scared of.
Right.
But then I showed up to the gym and all these dudes, like I'm talking like these jacked guys are like, oh, hey, let me help you with this. Or like, I might not even ask for help and someone will come up in a very gentle way and be like, hey man, actually you should try it like this with this form. I'm like, wow, thank you so much. And then you make the connection doing that. And then you get more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, you got to show up.
Yeah,
If you don't
have
show
to
up,
keep,
it's not going to work.
Right.
No, it makes me think of, dude, you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone.
You have
Right.
to.
Um,
We're not called to be comfortable.
Right, that's the best way to grow. Back on the gym topic, if you don't leave the gym sore, if you're not, putting in the hard work, how are you going to expect to grow? There's growing pains, right? So you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. You have to seek this. You have to really push.
One of the things that kills me too, just in that thought process, is that when you are going to the gym and you're not burning yourself up.
Yeah.
If you go to the gym and you haven't sweat, that's not an issue with your body. That means you did not work.
Yeah.
And that's just it. You need to put in the work.
Yeah, the bare minimum is only.
It reminds me because I was just thinking about this story. Like I remember I was really trying to help out a friend of mine to get bigger and to like really push where he feels the pain, and he's like, oh no, this hurts, I don't like it, and then he would just continue to do like
slap.
yeah, bro, like
You in
continue
pain?
to do,
You gotta be friends with.
Yeah,
man,
like this.
yeah,
like this.
I'm like, bro, you gotta do 5 more. You have 5 more, and he was like, no, it's hurting. I'm like, bro, then how are you gonna grow?
That is
Yeah.
the point.
Same the whole
That
year.
is the point. You gotta break that
know?
comfort zone. You
But
gotta
you're
get out
not
of
going to
there.
die. Right.
Yeah.
So that's
Right.
that's always been my bottom. It's like, dude, if I'm going through that set and I'm like, my brain is telling me this hurts and is telling me I want to quit, then I'm like, dude, you're not going to die. You're going to die if you don't get through this set. That's what I have to actually talk myself into. It's like, if you can't do 3 more reps, then you are going to die. And that's really how you should be looking at life anyway. It's like, if you are immovable and you stop moving, you're sitting at your house on the couch, just staring at your phone all day and doing nothing, nothing at your job, nothing at church, nothing outside of church, nothing at the gym. Dude, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right?
There's this they say this to the Marines. I don't know the exact statistic, but it's something like 60-70% of your brain tells you that you are done.
Right.
But your body has that remaining percentage.
Right.
Like 70, you can go way longer than what your brain is actually telling you.
Right.
So it's like a lot of that's mentally, and it's not just for the gym.
Like my boy Tom
Like-
Platts.
Yeah, Platts is hilarious.
But it's not
Legs, baby.
this guy. But it's not just for the gym though. Like that, like you just said, that same concept, I really feel like it's all mental of like you said, you're thinking to yourself, I'm insecure about this. I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I don't know how this is going to happen. It's like, dude, just go for it. What do you have to lose? You're
Yeah.
already sitting there.
Right.
The only thing that you have to lose is to be exactly where you're at right now.
The only thing you have to fear is fear itself.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
that phrase should be taking you enough, not what the Bible mentions. What is it, 370 times or something
It's
crazy?
a lot.
Where it talks against fear. And a lot of people are afraid of stepping or overstepping because they're insecure in a place. But the people that are making it in life, and these guys that own their businesses that I'm talking to, they took risks. Sometimes the risk is just leaving your house and doing something out of your norm. You know, you're doing something different, and that's huge.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to get closer to who you are as an identity, then start and moving towards the direction of making it for yourself. You'll find out quickly if that is who you are or not.
Yeah.
So here's how I would connect this to mission also, even like the gym stories that we're talking about. But Tony, you were motivated by this desire or passion for gym, and that you overcame it, some hesitancies about it, but once you immerse yourself, you were able to make progress, and along the way you can get the support you need, even when someone's spot checking you, like what Josiah was mentioning, that essentially is support, how you're pushing your partner to continue and do a few more reps, crank that out. That
was Josh, but yeah.
Yeah,
It's all right.
It's essentially finding that support along the way. So it's about, when you're thinking about your mission, finding that thing you're passionate about and immersing yourself in, and along the way you can get that support that you need. Right?
There's something I do, and I've always wanted to do with my daughter as well. And something I talked to her mom with was just, kids got to find out what they're good at, what they like, and I'm like, put her in everything, well, she wants to try out for POMs, or she wants to try out for volleyball. I'm like, go for it. I'm like, if it's sports related, then I'll work with her on it. Anything outside of that, she wants to do band. Okay, well, she doesn't want to do a band anymore. All right, then she doesn't want to do band. All right, well, keep on going. Let's see what is out there. And you actually got to go through these things as a kid. There's certain things that I didn't like as a kid and didn't care for, where it came back to, well, I did like rebelliousness and skateboarding, so I'm going to go down that route, Now that morphed into something a little more ridiculous than I wanted it to, but you still find there still is other things that I found along the way. You know what I'm saying? I loved music, so I'd be going to shows all the time. And to this day, I can tell you everything about 1,000 different bands, but it's something that I hung on to. I'm just like, no, I dig music, right? Now, it didn't mean that turned into something, but that was part of my makeup as well,
right?
So you are sitting on your couch watching this episode, and you're like, okay, well, then what's my next direction? Start moving, start doing stuff. Start saying, what is that movie with Jim Carrey? Yes, Man?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
you guys seen that?
Yes, man.
It's obviously a ridiculous, movie, but I think the point is that they had a motivational speaker on there that he saw where he was pushing everyone to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So obviously it comes to a certain point where not everything. It was a ridiculous point with him, right? But what he was doing was, you saw in the end all these things that started coming together in his life because he did say yes to everything, right?
Yeah.
And some things worked out for the best, some things didn't, right? But at least he went out there and just started trying everything.
Yeah.
It's almost
And
like
that's the point.
fishing. Like when you're fishing, like you can't necessarily expect the first cast to get a fish.
Wow, that's
like,
good, Tony.
You got to keep like throwing it out there, and then there's even different methods of doing it too. Like there's different lures and everything, and you got to move a certain way. Okay, these guys are all laughing.
No. I think it's Edgar's face too.
You're like,
Edgar loved
that's
it
good,
too.
Tony.
Nah.
But I mean,
No, it was
that's
good.
how it is. Like you have to keep going. You have to keep casting, and then like finally something's gonna stick.
Right.
Yeah.
Something is gonna stick the more you do it.
No, super applicable. Yeah, you can't be discouraged. Some days you go home with nothing,
Bro,
but some days,
there's been days I was out there freezing my butt off out
Yeah.
there, like ice fishing, and like you don't get nothing.
yeah.
Like I was here for 4 hours,
Yeah.
not one bite. But
Well, how many pictures you're gonna take? And
yeah,
the small amount out of taking 1,000 different pictures, right? As a photographer.
that's funny you say that, because like a typical wedding, I'll take like 8,000 photos, and then what the client will get is like maybe 100.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like that's out of 8,000 pictures.
8,000
And-
is a lot, bro.
Yeah, and I forgot what the
well, I mean,
statistics
weddings are
in-
pretty. Weddings are
Oh
pretty
yeah,
important.
you gotta catch
capture the moment.
everything. Yeah, it's, I mean,
Yeah, Josh, you'll figure it
Yeah,
out.
I mean, dude, it is like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
I'm
in
not a
sales,
photographer,
it's the
but-
same thing. You know, like you
Yeah.
get, I think it's like 1 out of 100. So you
Yeah.
talk to 100 people and then you'll get one, right?
Mhm.
It's the same thing with any skill setter as you're walking through life. Dude, do life. You know what I'm saying? There's
Yeah.
so many people out there that aren't doing anything with their life. It's like, do something with it, you know?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why we're so big on the gym is because it gets you moving.
Yeah.
If you're just getting off
Yep.
your couch, just getting out of your house, at least you're doing something. And once you get that
Yeah.
down, then you start feeling really good physically.
Yeah.
Dude, mentally is right there as well. I was just talking to Mike before the episode too, and we were talking about, man, if I lose, like, let's say I get 3 hours of sleep, there's a good chance. There's a lot of people that say, okay, well, I'd rather choose more sleep and just stay away from the gym. I'm not going to work out on being, 30%, right? I'd rather be closer to 80 or even obviously 100, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
But what it comes down to is I'm also thinking about people around me. You don't want to be around me if I didn't get that gym time in, because the correlation between physical fitness and mental health is so
Yeah.
closely knit that if
Yeah.
you don't get in physical fitness and you're not doing something physically, you are not going to feel good. And mentally, you're not going to feel good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a logical thing. Like, if you don't physically feel well, then how do you expect to mentally do tasks throughout the day?
Correct.
You know?
And you have to push yourself to create these healthy habits and make
Exactly.
it truly a part of your daily routine. Same with reading the word. Okay, going to the gym every day. Yes, you got to move. This is not only good for you. This is good for your family. This is good for
Correct.
you in
Yeah,
the
that's
long
when
run.
it involves everyone else around
Yeah,
you. Like
yeah.
there's people that are literally counting on you. you know?
Yes.
And like you might not realize it. And maybe you're sitting there at your house thinking like, there's no one that really thinks that. People are watching. Like that's
Yeah.
just like human
Right.
nature. I mean, why do you think people enjoy people watching? Like
Right.
it happens,
Yeah.
But
And
like people are counting on you though. They're counting on you to be getting up and doing this because people are looking at you. They're seeing what's happening. And then even a small nugget from, X, Y, and Z, it will push them forward.
Yeah.
That's
So
good
it's
and
not just
bad.
about, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not just about yourself though, is the point of that. Like
Right,
people are counting on you.
Yeah.
Okay. Final thoughts on mission, identity. Tony, go for it.
Yeah, I think what's really important, and I kind of wanted to harp on this for a little bit, is like the importance you have to impact other people. Like, yeah, number one, it starts with like, okay, what's the corporate mission? Know God, let God be known, and encourage, love, and encourage and love one another. And then, when you start going on the path of like what your personal mission is, then you can really start to actually help other people out as well. And that's kind of the question I want to leave you guys with is how are you investing in the people that are around you? I mentioned this earlier, but everyone knows someone in their life that they can invest into. So how are you personally doing that? That's a question I want to leave for the audience because it's important. We have an influence and we have an impact that we can do and that we can have on other people. And even as I just said earlier is that some people are even counting on us. So we got to be intentional with ourselves first on the day-to-day, blocking out time to get better and to push into the mission that we have. But then secondly is to then in turn help the people that are around us as well.
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah, that is really good.
Nice.
Mike?
Last takeaway. Mission. If you don't have your mission, this is something that you truly have to push for. Creating healthy habits. Once you get your mission, it's easy to then analyze your purpose. You question what you're doing in your life, in your everyday, day to day, where to go, what's next, the next moves, next steps. Remembering your mission will then lead you to remembering your purpose and then being able to live that out.
It's good.
Yeah.
Edgar.
I share a very similar mindset, to Tony and Michael with regard to mission. It's actually it's important for every single person. Mission and knowing what your mission is, it's crucial for every single person. And why I say that is because it helps you understand where you're going, what the goal is in your life. It helps you stay grounded when seasons change. You're grounded in your mission,
That's good.
and
Yeah.
you
It's good.
can protect against the identity crisis that comes in. And so I would encourage everyone to discover your mission in practical ways, especially through praying praying to God, identifying your passions, and then finding someone who can help coach you through those passions.
That's really good.
So that you can live a fulfilling life.
Right. It's good.
Amen.
Josh, what do you got?
Yeah. I would say that as far as mission goes, for those that really don't know what to do, I would say to, man, you guys all said it all, but I would just say to read a book, anything that's gonna help you to excel in life and something that you're passionate about. It could be faith, could be business, could be entrepreneurship, could be whatever you want to set your mind on. Something that you can grow from, something that, say, you're talented in, say you work in music or something like that. Invest in that. I would say something that takes you away from just sitting down watching TV all day long or sitting down not doing anything. You want to start somewhere. And I would say by you taking leaps of faith or steps of faith and pursuing something better to grow for yourself and for your family, then little by little you'll have seasons of where you'll investigate that you'll have, okay, I was pursuing this, but since I know I'm doing better at this, it's like your missions change, and to discern, where you're going. But you have to start somewhere. So
Yeah.
Just get started.
yeah, so just get started with something.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up episode 3.
Let's
you guys,
go.
next episode 4, we will obviously start having Tony on a regular crew here. Not that he wasn't before, but he's just behind the cameras. So episode 4, we'll be discussing Tony's trip to Lebanon and how sick he got off of American food when he came back.
Yeah.
We'll be
it was
discussing
pretty
health, diet, supplements, right? We'll start digging into that. We'll talk about the journeys that I've had with supplements and some of the discoveries we've made, and discussing third party, where we find supplements are what they say they are. You guys, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day, evening, night.
Thank you guys. Episode 3.
Over and out. America.